hello and welcome. Tonight, we're stepping into the shadows, into a world where whispers echo, mirrors hold secrets, and legends walk just out of sight. These are the scariest urban legends from around the world, woven from fear, folklore, and mystery. So if you're ready, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another quiet descent into the unknown. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. La Llorona, the Weeping Woman. In the stillness of the night, somewhere between memory and myth, there is a sound that drifts along riverbanks and weaves its way through the reeds. It is not the call of an owl or the rustle of wind through trees. It is a cry, a long, sorrowful wail, the voice of a woman lost in time, mourning endlessly for something she can never reclaim. They call her La Llorona, the Weeping Woman. Her legend begins in Mexico, where stories of her have been passed down for centuries, but the shape of her tale is fluid, changing from one village to the next, from one storyteller to another. Still, some details remain constant. She is always a mother. She is always grieving, and her spirit is always searching for the children she lost. The most common version tells of a woman named Maria. In her youth, Maria was said to be beautiful, so beautiful that even nobles and men of great wealth were drawn to her. But she was poor, born into a humble family, and the idea of marrying into status became a powerful dream. One day, a man came into her village, handsome, wealthy, and of noble blood. He was a charmer, a traveler, a man who could have had anyone, and yet he chose Maria. Their love bloomed quickly, and not long after, they were married. Maria bore him 2 children, and for a time she was happy. But it was not to last. As the years passed, the nobleman grew distant. He was gone for long stretches, and when he returned, he gave more attention to the children than to Maria. Whispers began to follow him, of affairs, of women in distant cities, and one day he returned with another woman, announcing that he was leaving Maria for someone younger, someone of his own social class. What happened next is the heart of the legend. Blinded by rage and despair, Maria took her children to the river. The details here are vague. Some say it was out of revenge. Others say it was a moment of madness, a desire to hurt the man who had abandoned her. But the end is always the same. Maria held her children close, kissed their foreheads, and let the river take them. Only then, as their bodies disappeared beneath the water, did she realize what she had done. Consumed by horror, she wandered the banks of the river, calling out their names, searching the water, pleading for forgiveness. Some say she threw herself in after them. Others say she wasted away in grief, her cries echoing into the night. And when her body was finally found, it was buried far from the churchyard, condemned by the village, her soul denied peace. And so she returned, not as Maria, but as La Llorona. They say her spirit still walks the rivers at night, dressed in white, her face veiled or pale as death. She cries for her children, "Ay, mis hijos," and searches the waters endlessly. Children are warned to stay away from the river after dark, lest she mistake them for her own and take them with her. Grown men, too, claim to have seen her. She appears suddenly, sometimes floating, sometimes gliding, always weeping. And when she looks at you, it is as if the sorrow of the world pours out of her eyes and into your bones. In some tellings, she is malevolent. She lures children and drowns them. In others, she is a tragic warning, a mother cursed to forever wander, her cries a reminder of grief, guilt, and unending love. But the story does not belong to Mexico alone. Variations of La Llorona exist across Latin America, in Guatemala, Colombia, Venezuela, and even as far north as the southwestern United States. Each version adds new shades to her legend. In some, she is a noble woman who fell in love with a Spanish conquistador. In others, she is the victim of a betrayal so cruel that her sanity slipped away. The core, however, remains unchanged. Children lost, a mother weeping, a river that carries both memory and judgment. Folklorists often point out that stories like La Llorona serve a purpose. They warn children to be cautious near dangerous places. They reflect societal fears of betrayal, of maternal failure, of grief that goes unacknowledged. But they also endure because they touch something deeper. The image of a mother searching for her lost children, unable to move on, is one of the most haunting symbols imaginable. It is grief, eternal, love turned to anguish, motherhood twisted into myth. Some say they've heard her cry late at night, even in cities. A low, aching wail that moves through alleyways and down abandoned streets. Others tell of dreams, vivid, unsettling dreams in which a woman in white calls their name, her face hidden, her sorrow overwhelming. And then there are those who believe they've seen her. One story comes from a small village near Oaxaca. A man was driving home late one night, the road quiet, the air thick with fog. As he neared a small bridge that crossed the local river, his headlights caught a figure standing on the edge, a woman in white. Her hair was long, her head bowed, her arms outstretched. He stopped the car, unsure whether to help or flee. But before he could decide, she turned to him. Her eyes were hollow, her mouth opened in a silent scream, and then she vanished. When he told the villagers the next day, they nodded solemnly. La Llorona, they said. Another tale is told by a grandmother in New Mexico, who swears that when she was a child, she and her siblings heard the wailing one night and peeked outside their window. There, by the irrigation canal that ran behind their house, they saw a woman crouched on the bank, her hands in the water, rocking as she sobbed. She wore white, and when she turned her face toward them, her eyes were red as embers. They ducked back behind the curtain, trembling, and when they looked again, she was gone. It is easy, in the light of day, to dismiss these tales. But when the sky darkens and the wind carries just the hint of a cry, the old fear returns. There's a timelessness to the legend of La Llorona, as though it belongs to the night itself. She is both a ghost and a question about what we carry, about what haunts us, about what can never be undone. She is sorrow made visible. She is love that has turned to shadow. And even now, along the banks of rivers, in the quiet of twilight, she walks. Chapter 2. Bloody Mary, the Mirror Spirit. There's something about mirrors that has always unsettled us. They reflect the world we know, but in silence, and in reverse. They double everything, yet feel hollow, like a portal waiting for something to step through. We glance at them when passing. We study ourselves within them, and yet we seldom trust them completely. It's no wonder, then, that one of the most persistent urban legends takes place in front of a mirror, often in the dark, always alone. Her name is whispered with fear. Bloody Mary. To some, she is a game. To others, she is a curse. But in every version, she is a name you speak into the mirror. You summon her by calling out once, twice, 3 times. And if she comes, it is already too late. The legend of Bloody Mary exists in dozens of forms, told in schoolyards, at sleepovers, and whispered between children who pretend they aren't afraid. But fear lingers even in the retelling. Because even if no one has truly seen her, everyone knows someone who has. The ritual goes something like this. You stand in front of a mirror, usually in a bathroom, with the lights off. You might light a candle or wait until midnight. Then you speak her name 3 times, sometimes 13. The number varies, as if to draw out the tension. And then you wait. Some say she appears instantly, a pale face staring back at you from the glass, her mouth open in a silent scream. Others claim she moves slowly, crawling into view from the corner of the mirror. Sometimes she weeps, sometimes she bleeds, sometimes she reaches out, trying to pull you in. There are endless variations. In one, she scratches your face. In another, she drags you into the mirror to take your place. In some versions, she simply watches you, never blinking, until your courage fails and you flee the room. But always she comes. No one agrees on who Bloody Mary truly is. Some say she was a woman named Mary Worth, a witch executed during the Salem trials, who cursed those who summoned her. Others say she was Queen Mary I of England, known as Bloody Mary for her persecution of Protestants. Yet another version tells of a girl named Mary who was horribly disfigured either from an accident or a disease, and who now seeks revenge on those who dare to look at her reflection. These stories change depending on the region, the storyteller, and the time period. But at their heart, they all return to a single, chilling idea that saying her name can make her real. Children dare one another to summon her. Some laugh, others refuse outright. And while most never see anything in the mirror but their own nervous expressions, a few tell different stories. One girl, in a small town in Ohio, said she saw something flicker behind her when she spoke the name. Just a shadow, too tall, unmoving. But when she turned on the lights, there was nothing there. For weeks after, she refused to be alone in any room with a mirror. Another story, told in a hushed voice at a school in Oregon, claims that a boy dared to say the name 13 times while holding a candle. He laughed after nothing happened. But the next morning, his face was covered in deep, red scratches, as if something had clawed at him in the night. He swore he'd seen her, her eyes black, her hands dripping with blood. But no one believed him, not even his parents. They said he did it to himself, but he never went near a mirror again. There's a psychological element to this legend, something primal. The idea that you could summon a ghost just by saying a name speaks to a deep, unsettling power. Words as invocation, speech as summoning. And the mirror, that silent, watching surface, becomes more than glass. It becomes a door. Some researchers have studied the Bloody Mary ritual as a form of optical illusion. In low light, the human brain struggles to process facial features. After staring at one's reflection for too long in dim light, the brain begins to distort the image. Faces melt, twist, or vanish. This phenomenon, called the strange face illusion, is scientifically real. It causes hallucinations that seem terrifyingly vivid. But does that explain everything? Those who believe in the legend will tell you the distortions aren't random. They don't see just any face. They see hers. It's as if the mirror reveals something, not just within itself, but within us. Our fears, our guilt, our curiosity, and maybe, just maybe, something else. Mirrors have long been considered powerful in folklore. In ancient cultures, they were believed to be windows to the soul. In Victorian times, it was common to cover mirrors in a home after someone had died to prevent the spirit from getting trapped inside. Many ghost stories involve mirrors cracking, fogging inexplicably, or showing something that isn't in the room. The Bloody Mary legend takes all of these ideas and distills them into a single moment, the courage, or foolishness, of speaking her name in the dark. Some cultures have their own versions. In Japan, there is the spirit of Hanako-san, a ghostly girl said to haunt school bathrooms. In Latin America, tales of women in white, like La Llorona, also feature mirrors and reflective surfaces as part of their haunting. In Slavic folklore, spirits of the dead are said to be visible only in mirrors, their images fading if looked at too directly. It is a global fear, this idea of the reflection turning against us. And so the legend of Bloody Mary persists, not just because it's frightening, but because it invites participation. It dares us to play. Late at night, in houses gone quiet, with only the flicker of a candle for company, the bathroom becomes a stage. The mirror becomes a gate. And the name becomes a key. 3 times. That's all it takes. And once you begin, you must be prepared to see what answers. Chapter 3. Slender Man, the internet's tallest nightmare. He is impossibly tall. That is the first thing anyone notices about him. He towers above the trees, above rooftops, sometimes above logic itself. His limbs are long, stretched unnaturally, his arms hanging like ropes at his sides. His face, or what should be a face, is blank, pale, featureless. No eyes, no mouth, no expression, and yet those who see him know exactly what he wants. He is Slender Man. Unlike the other legends we've explored, stories that trace back generations, passed from parent to child, rooted in regional myth, Slender Man was born in the digital age. He came not from whispers in the dark, but from a Photoshop contest. A joke, an image. And yet, somehow, he became something more. In June of 2009, a user named Victor Surge posted 2 manipulated black and white photos on a website called Something Awful. In each, children played innocently in the foreground, but behind them, in the shadows, was a figure, tall, thin, dressed in a black suit, with no face. He was barely visible, just a distortion, an aberration. Alongside the images, Serge added brief captions, suggesting that the figure was linked to the unexplained disappearance of children. It was meant to be fiction, a kind of collaborative storytelling experiment, but something about it caught on. Other users began adding to the myth, crafting fake newspaper clippings, school reports, eyewitness accounts. Soon, Slender Man was no longer a creation. He was a presence. His story grew far beyond the forum, spreading across blogs, video series, social media, and eventually into the public consciousness. He became a ghost for the internet age. Unlike traditional legends, Slender Man had no fixed origin, no single location, no ancient roots. Instead, he thrived on ambiguity. He lived in the woods, in abandoned buildings, in the back of photographs. He watched, he waited, and his motives were never clear. Sometimes he was described as stalking children, influencing them, drawing them into the forest. Other times, he caused memory loss, nightmares, or sudden disappearances. Some said he could stretch his limbs to impossible lengths. Others believed he had tendrils that emerged from his back, moving like smoke or shadow. But always he was silent. Always he was near. What made Slender Man truly terrifying wasn't just his appearance or his mysterious behavior. It was his adaptability. He could exist anywhere, in any photo, in any story. He was a blank canvas for fear, a manifestation of unease, tailored to the age of viral content and digital folklore. And he wasn't just a story told about children. He became a story told by them. Middle schoolers passed tales of him on forums and YouTube. They drew pictures, wrote stories, created entire mythologies. One of the most famous adaptations was a YouTube series called Marble Hornets, which used found footage style videos to chronicle a growing obsession with the Slender Man figure. As the episodes progressed, viewers became immersed in a paranoid world of surveillance, static, and dread. But fiction has its limits. And in 2014, the line between myth and reality was shattered. In Waukesha, Wisconsin, two 12-year-old girls lured their friend into the woods. They stabbed her 19 times. When questioned, they said they did it to appease Slender Man. They believed he would hurt them or their families if they didn't offer a sacrifice. They said they were trying to become his proxies to prove themselves worthy. The victim survived, but the legend was changed forever. The media coverage was intense. Slender Man was no longer just an internet myth. He was front-page news. Parents panicked. Schools blocked access to related websites. Critics blamed the internet, video games, digital culture. And suddenly, a creation born from fiction was blamed for real-world horror. Yet even that dark chapter only added to his power. Slender Man became a symbol of modern fear, of the dangers of belief, of how the stories we tell can take on lives of their own. He entered mainstream culture through documentaries, feature films, novels, and television episodes. But the core of the legend remained the same. A tall man in a dark suit watching you from the edge of the frame. And that is perhaps the most unsettling thing of all. Because Slender Man is not a ghost, or a spirit, or a demon bound by law. He is a reflection of us, of our ability to spread fear, to build monsters out of nothing but suggestion and shadow. And once he exists, once the idea takes hold, he never truly goes away. He does not chase you, he waits. You might see him in the woods during a walk that's gone too quiet. You might glimpse him in the static of an old video or in the corner of a photo you don't remember taking. Maybe you just feel him, a presence, a silence. And when you do, you won't scream, you won't run. You'll just look, and he will already be looking back. Chapter 4. The Serbian Dancing Lady. Midnight Terror in Belgrade. It starts with a video. Grainy, shaky, recorded from a distance. A dimly lit street stretches into the night, lined with apartment buildings and parked cars. The air is still, silent. And then, there, at the edge of the frame, she appears. A woman dancing alone. Her movements are strange, too graceful to be aimless, too erratic to be a performance. She twirls slowly, then abruptly snaps into rigid, contorted poses. One arm flutters above her head, the other clutches something at her side. Sometimes it's a bag, sometimes it's a knife. This is the legend of the Serbian dancing lady. Plesacica is Noćna Mor, as some call her, the dancer from the nightmare. It is one of the internet's most eerie and recent urban legends, born not from ancient myth, but from viral footage. And yet, it has the weight and strangeness of something much older, something that has waited in the shadows for a very long time. The first viral video is said to have emerged around 2019, filmed on a quiet street in Belgrade's Zvezdara district. In it, a lone woman dances in the middle of the road in the dead of night. She appears to be middle-aged, wearing a long dress, her hair tied back. Her movements are bizarre, stylized, theatrical, almost ritualistic. Then, she stops. She turns slowly to the camera, as if she knows she's being watched. And then she starts walking forward. Some versions of the story claim that the cameraman ran. Others say she chased him. One version claims he was found days later, in shock, unable to speak. Still others say nothing happened at all, that the video was just a hoax. But the story didn't stop there. More videos began to surface. Similar women, dancing on lonely sidewalks, in alleyways, near abandoned train stations. In some, the women are silent. In others, they hum tunelessly. Some carry knives. Some are seen laughing. All of them dance. Urban legends began to swirl. Some say she is a spirit, a ghostly woman who lost her mind after the death of a child or a lover. Others say she's a cursed soul, trapped in a loop, dancing forever in grief. Still others claim she is not one woman, but many, cult members, or possessed dancers reenacting an old, forbidden ritual. But one detail always returns. The dancing is not for joy. It is a warning. The legend takes on darker dimensions in these tellings. One variation suggests that if you see the dancing lady and fail to flee, she will follow you home. You might hear soft footsteps behind you, a low humming, the shuffle of feet on your stairs. Then one night, you'll wake to find her dancing in the corner of your room. Another version says she dances to mark death, that someone in your life will soon pass, and she is the herald. If she dances for you, it means you've been chosen. And then there are those who link her to an old Serbian folktale. In this telling, she was once a ballet dancer who lost her mind after being dismissed from a prestigious company. She returned to the streets where she once danced as a child and never left. Some say she was institutionalized. Others claim she died by suicide. But on certain nights, when the air is cold and still, her spirit returns to the same corners, the same lamplit streets, dancing the same broken steps she always knew. Locals have mixed reactions to the legend. Some dismiss it as a social media prank, a viral marketing stunt, or a case of mistaken identity turned myth. Others believe it wholeheartedly, warning friends and children not to walk alone at night. Taxi drivers in Belgrade have told of late-night fares who ask to be dropped off far from certain districts, claiming they saw her. And then there are the witnesses. One young man claimed he saw her near a small playground at 3 a.m. He was walking home from a friend's house when he noticed a figure spinning in the middle of the street. Her arms waved above her head like branches caught in wind. She was barefoot, and she was laughing. He called out. She stopped. She turned. And then, slowly, she started walking toward him. He ran. He never took that route again. Another witness, an elderly woman from Užice, swore the dancing lady was real. She said she remembered a neighbor, an older woman named Dragica, who would dance in the yard every night. She had once been a dance teacher, but after her family passed away, she became different. She danced in the market, she danced in the street. Sometimes she wept, sometimes she sang. The town ignored her until one day she disappeared. When the video surfaced, the woman was certain. That's her. The internet has tried to solve the mystery. Some users claim to have traced the original video's source. Others believe it's all a hoax, a performance art piece or a viral social experiment. A few go deeper, insisting it's part of a digital curse. That the more people talk about her, the more she appears. That the legend spreads like a virus, not through belief, but through attention. And maybe that's the scariest part, because the Serbian dancing lady doesn't need a backstory. She doesn't need a name or a motive. She doesn't chase you through your dreams or reach out from mirrors. She simply dances, slowly, endlessly. And the fear comes not from what she does, but from the question of why. Why here? Why now? Why you? There's something profoundly uncanny about a human figure behaving just a little too strangely. Dancing where no one should be dancing, laughing when no one is around to hear. A reminder that the line between joy and madness is thinner than we like to admit. And so the legend remains. Somewhere in the night, beneath a flickering street lamp, a woman begins to dance. Her feet trace old steps. Her arms sway with forgotten rhythm. And if you see her, if you catch her eye, don't watch for too long. Because once you've seen her, she's already seen you. Chapter 5. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. It's late. The highway stretches out endlessly under the dark sky, lit only by the occasional street lamp and the dim glow of dashboard lights. Your eyes are heavy. your thoughts drifting. The road hums beneath the tires, a constant rhythm that soothes and unnerves. And then, just ahead, you see a figure, a person, standing on the shoulder. They raise their arm, thumb out, a hitchhiker. You slow down. Something about them seems off. Maybe it's the time of night. Maybe it's their clothes, old-fashioned, out of place. Maybe it's just the way they look at you. But you stop anyway. They climb in silently, thank you in a quiet voice, and give you an address not far away. You drive. There is small talk, or maybe none at all. But when you arrive, when you pull up to the house, they're gone. The seat is empty. The car door never opened. You were alone the whole time. This is the story of the vanishing hitchhiker. It is one of the oldest and most widespread urban legends in the world, told in countless versions across continents, cultures, and decades. But the core is always the same. A driver picks up a hitchhiker, usually a young woman, who gives a destination, often a home or a cemetery. She enters the car, speaks briefly, then disappears before the ride is over. Later, the driver discovers that the passenger had died years before. It is a story that straddles the line between folklore and ghost story. And its endurance speaks to something deep within us. Our fear of the unknown, our discomfort with strangers, and the eerie feeling that sometimes the dead don't stay dead. The legend has been told in dozens of countries. In the United States, she's often described as a girl in a white dress, picked up near a bridge or a lonely stretch of highway. The driver delivers her to her home, only to be told by a grieving parent or an elderly relative, "That's not possible. She died 10 years ago. She was hit by a car, right where you picked her up." In Hawaii, the story is linked to the ancient goddess Pele. She appears as an old woman or a young one, and those who help her are said to receive protection. In South Africa, the ghost is a man in a business suit. In Japan, it is sometimes a woman who vanishes from the back of a taxi, leaving behind only a faint scent of perfume. The variations are endless, and in every version the effect is the same. An ordinary drive becomes a brush with the supernatural. Some researchers believe the vanishing hitchhiker story has roots in medieval folklore. Tales of spectral travelers, ghostly pilgrims, and cursed wanderers appear in old European ballads and writings. But it was in the 20th century, with the rise of car culture, that the legend truly took off. Automobiles created a new kind of liminal space, isolated, mobile, vulnerable, a perfect setting for a modern haunting. In the 1930s and 40s, newspapers and radio shows began reporting supposed true encounters. Listeners called in with their own stories. Drivers swore they had picked up someone who vanished mid-ride. Cab drivers recounted empty back seats. Police officers shared stories of reports that couldn't be explained. And then there was Resurrection Mary, one of the most famous vanishing hitchhiker legends in America. Mary is said to haunt the roads near Resurrection Cemetery in Justice, Illinois, just outside Chicago. According to the story, she was a young woman who died in a car accident in the 1930s after leaving a dance hall. Since then, she has been seen many times, often wearing a white party dress, wandering along Archer Avenue. Drivers pick her up. She gives them directions to the cemetery, and then she vanishes. Some even say she leaves behind physical evidence, a handprint on the window, or a piece of fabric caught in the door. There have been dozens of reported sightings over the decades, some by police officers, others by late-night drivers with no reason to lie. The stories vary in detail, but always return to the same pattern: a young woman, a ride, a disappearance, and a chill that lingers long after. The vanishing hitchhiker is unique among urban legends for how universal it is. It doesn't rely on a specific culture, historical event, or even a language. All it needs is a road, a driver, and a moment of trust. A brief encounter with someone who doesn't quite belong. Psychologists suggest the legend might be tied to feelings of guilt or empathy, a subconscious reminder to help strangers or a warning against doing so. Others see it as a metaphor for fleeting moments, for the unknowable, for grief that travels with us. But maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe we're just afraid of being alone on a dark road, afraid of what we might see, or who we might meet. And when we hear a story like this, when someone tells us they picked up a hitchhiker who vanished, we don't dismiss it, not entirely, because somewhere, deep down, we understand how easily the world can slip from normal to strange. We've all felt it. That shiver on the back of your neck when you pass someone walking alone at night. That flicker in the rearview mirror that makes you check again. That whisper of doubt that says, maybe just this once. The story is real. And so the legend endures. Drivers still see her, still stop, still wonder. And when they tell their story, it becomes someone else's warning, someone else's tale to pass along. A reminder that even in the age of GPS and headlights and satellite tracking, there are still places on the map where ghosts travel too. So the next time you're driving late at night and you see a figure by the side of the road, think twice before you stop. Because if you do, and she climbs into your car, you may not be alone for long, but you won't be with the living either. Chapter 6. The Tokoloshe. Mischief and terror in the shadows. In the still heat of the night, when the air feels too thick to breathe, and the silence presses in from every corner, something stirs beneath the bed. Not a breeze, not a rat, something worse. The Tokoloshe. In the traditional folklore of the Zulu and Xhosa people of southern Africa, the Tokoloshe is one of the most feared and mysterious creatures, a small, malevolent spirit with a wicked grin and a hunger for chaos. Unlike some ghosts, the Tokoloshe is not bound to one place, nor driven by sorrow. It is a creature of intent, of mischief, of harm, and of darkness. Describing the Tokoloshe isn't easy, because the stories about its appearance vary wildly. Some say it's a dwarf-like creature, hairy and hunched, with bulging eyes and razor-sharp teeth. Others say it's invisible to most, only seen by those it chooses, or curses. In some tales, it walks upright like a man. In others, it crawls, slinking across floors and under beds, dragging its long fingers behind it. But all the stories agree on one thing: the Tokoloshe comes at night, and it doesn't come to play. In Zulu mythology, the Tokoloshe is created by a witch or sorcerer using dark magic. It is summoned to cause trouble, harm, or even death. Some say it is controlled through rituals and offerings. Others say that once it's unleashed, no one, not even its master, can fully control what it does next. Its favorite targets, the sleeping. It slips into homes quietly, often at night, creeping under blankets and beds. In the most terrifying stories, it climbs onto the chest of a sleeping victim, pressing down until they can't breathe, sometimes to scare, other times to kill. There are tales of people found lifeless in their beds, no marks on their bodies, just fear frozen on their faces. And when it happens, elders whisper, "The Tokoloshe has visited." To protect against the Tokoloshe, many households in southern Africa still practice a simple ritual. They raise their beds off the floor, often on bricks or blocks. This tradition, born of fear, is still seen today, not just in rural areas, but even in cities, because no one wants to risk a visit from the creature that crawls in the night. There are other protections too. Charms made by sangomas, traditional healers, are often placed near doors and windows. Dogs are said to sense the Tokoloshe before humans do, barking wildly at what no one else can see. And if you suspect a Tokoloshe is haunting you, the only way to be free may be to find the witch who sent it and beg for mercy. But not all Tokoloshe tales are about death. Some say the creature is mischievous rather than murderous. It hides things. It whispers cruel words into your ear as you sleep. It causes nightmares. It trips you when no one else is around. It moves objects and locks doors. It creates fear, then feeds on it. One particularly chilling story comes from a school in Limpopo. The students complained of feeling watched in the dormitory. Books went missing. Doors slammed shut. Some reported seeing a small shadow darting across the floor, too quick to catch, too real to ignore. Then the nightmares began. Students waking up screaming, claiming something had sat on their chest, whispering in a voice they didn't understand. The school brought in a sangoma, who performed a cleansing ritual. Afterward, the disturbances stopped, but no one ever found the creature. In another story from KwaZulu-Natal, a man claimed his cousin was being tormented by a Tokoloshe. Every night, she heard laughter, high-pitched, cruel, right outside her window. When she looked, there was nothing. Then came the scratches on the door. Then the dreams. In one dream, the Tokoloshe stood at the foot of her bed, grinning, its eyes glowing red. When she woke up, the sheets were torn. The family moved her bed onto bricks. The laughter stopped. But she never slept without the lights on again. Modern interpretations of the Tokoloshe vary. Some see it as a symbol of suppressed fears, anxieties, or unresolved traumas. Others believe it to be a very real spiritual threat. In some parts of South Africa, it is still taken so seriously that criminal acts, especially strange or unexplained deaths, are sometimes attributed to Tokoloshe attacks. And in urban areas, the Tokoloshe has evolved. In stories told today, it sometimes appears through screens, on phones, in photos, in videos that suddenly distort. Witnesses report seeing flashes of something hunched and small, behind them in reflections. Some say it attaches to people, following them from place to place, feeding off their stress and fear like a parasite. There are even online forums where people share Tokoloshe experiences. dreams of being watched, sensations of being pinned down at night, objects moved, voices heard. Whether superstition or reality, belief in the tokoloshe is alive and well in the 21st century. Because unlike legends tied to old places or historical events, the tokoloshe can go anywhere. All it needs is an invitation, or a grudge, or an open window in the dead of night. So if you find yourself in a room that suddenly feels too quiet, if your dreams turn dark and your sheets seem to move on their own, if you feel breath on your cheek when no one is there, look under your bed and maybe, just maybe, raise it up on bricks, just in case. Chapter 7, aka Manto, the red cloak of the bathroom. There are few places more unsettling than a public bathroom at night. The flicker of fluorescent lights, the distant echoes of footsteps, the strange, almost unnatural stillness that settles in tiled walls and mirrors. It's a place of vulnerability, private, yet exposed. And in Japan, there is one spirit who waits there in silence, waiting for someone to sit down, to make a choice. And once you do, there's no right answer. His name is Akamanto, the red cloak. The legend begins when a person enters a bathroom, most often a school bathroom, usually alone. They sit down in the last stall, when suddenly they hear a voice behind them. Calm, unemotional. Would you like red paper or blue paper? Or in some versions, do you want a red cloak or a blue one? If they choose red, they are slashed violently until their clothes or even their body is soaked in blood. If they choose blue, they are strangled, their skin turning cold and pale. If they try to choose a different color, they vanish. If they try to run, they're never seen again. The only way to survive, some say, is to ignore the voice, to refuse to answer, to stay silent. But by then, it may already be too late. The origin of Akamanto is difficult to trace. The story began circulating widely in Japanese schools in the 1930s, but scholars believe it may have older roots. The character's name, Akamanto, literally means red cloak, a nod to the fashion of the Meiji and Taisho periods, when cloaks and capes were more common. In many depictions, Akamanto is described as a tall, well-dressed man wearing a red cloak and a mask that covers his face. Sometimes a white surgical mask, other times a porcelain or theatrical mask. Always impassive, always cold. He is often described as handsome beneath the mask, or so beautiful that no one who sees him can resist looking at him. But those who look do not live. The bathroom setting of the Akamanto legend is important. In Japanese folklore, restrooms, especially school bathrooms, are often seen as liminal spaces, places where the boundary between the human world and the spirit world is thin. Places of transition, of vulnerability, of silence. This is why many Japanese ghost stories are set there. The fear is psychological as much as supernatural, and the idea of being given an impossible choice, one that guarantees your death, adds to the horror. Some versions of the story add even more gruesome detail. If you choose red, Akamanto flays you alive, or cuts your body so many times that your blood coats the floor. If you choose blue, He sucks the blood from your body or drains the oxygen from your lungs. Some stories claim the spirit can only appear in stalls with old doors. Others say he targets only those who are alone or those who stay too long. There are stories from school children who swear they've encountered him. Some claim to have heard the voice, calm, emotionless, asking the question. Others say they saw a figure in the mirror as they washed their hands, wearing a red cape, standing perfectly still behind them, and then gone. One boy from a rural school near Kyoto claimed he saw the red cloak flutter beneath the bathroom door. When he looked underneath, no feet, just shadow. He never used that bathroom again. Another student reported waking up in the nurse's office with no memory of how they got there. The last thing they remembered was the question, red paper or blue? A.K. Manto has become a staple of Japanese pop culture. He appears in manga, horror films, video games, and anime. Often, he is treated with a blend of fear and satire, but the fear is always stronger. Because Akamanto, like many urban legends, is not about logic. He is not a ghost you can reason with, not a spirit you can banish. He is a question, an inevitable moment, a choice that offers no escape. In some versions of the story, even calling for help won't save you. The bathroom stalls stretch endlessly, the doors vanish, the lights go out, you are alone, and the voice is behind you. Red or blue? Folklorists see in Akamanto echoes of other Japanese spirits, vengeful yurei, faceless nopperabo, or terrifying onryo. But Akamanto is unique because he is faceless by choice. He hides his features not out of shame, but because the horror lies not in what he is, but in what he makes you do. He is the fear of decision under pressure, of being cornered, of knowing that no matter what you choose, you've already lost. And so the legend persists. Schools with older bathrooms often have at least one stall that no one uses. A cursed stall, a haunted one. It might be the last on the left, or the one with the door that never quite closes. That's the one, students whisper. That's where he waits. And even now, if you were to walk into a school bathroom late at night, alone, you might hear it. A rustle behind you, the scrape of a cloak, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps. Then a voice, calm, close. Would you like red or blue? Chapter 8, The Manananggal. Winged horror of the Philippines. When night falls over the countryside of the Philippines and the moon hangs low over the rice fields, villagers close their windows, latch their doors, and bring their children inside. The air changes. It becomes heavier, thick with the tension of old fear. Because in the darkness, something stirs. It is not a ghost, not a spirit, but something far stranger. A creature with leathery wings and a hunger that cannot be sated. The Manananggal. In Filipino folklore, the Manananggal is one of the most terrifying creatures imaginable. A vampiric, shape-shifting woman who by day walks unnoticed among the people. But at night, she undergoes a gruesome transformation. Her upper body separates from her lower half. Her torso sprouts wings like those of a giant bat, and she takes to the sky, hunting in silence. She searches for sleeping victims, and she feeds. Often, her prey is pregnant women. She hovers outside their homes, using her long, needle-like tongue to reach through windows or thatched roofs. She drinks the blood of the mother. In some stories, she devours the unborn child. In others, she targets newlyweds, young men or infants. But always, her arrival is silent, and her departure devastating. The name Manananggal comes from the Tagalog word tanggal, meaning to separate. It refers to her grotesque ability to split her body in two, a detail that distinguishes her from other mythical creatures of the night. Her upper half, with entrails dangling, flies through the night in search of prey. Her lower half remains hidden, standing like a statue in a secluded area, vulnerable but essential, because if you find it, you can destroy her. To kill a Manananggal, legend says you must locate her lower torso and sprinkle it with salt, ash, crushed garlic, or holy water. This prevents her from reuniting with her body before dawn, and if she fails to return by sunrise, trapped, incomplete, she will perish. But finding her resting place is no small task. She is clever. She hides in forests, on rooftops, in abandoned buildings. She disguises herself during the day, blending in with villagers, pretending to be just another face in the crowd. She may even be kind, helpful, beautiful. And that's part of what makes her so terrifying, because you might never know who she really is until it's too late. Stories of the Manananggal have been told for generations throughout the Visayas and other regions of the Philippines. In rural areas, sightings are still reported. Old women speak of hearing wings flapping outside their homes. Wings not like those of a bird, but heavier, thicker, leathery. Children are warned to sleep with garlic by their pillows, to never sleep with open wounds, to beware of strange women who ask too many questions about who is expecting a child. One well-known tale tells of a young couple who had just moved into a new home on the edge of the village. The wife was pregnant. The husband worked late in the fields. One night, the wife woke to a sound outside the window, like the fluttering of enormous wings. She stayed still, eyes wide, heart pounding. Then she heard it. A thin, wet slurping sound. She screamed. Her husband ran back from the fields. He found her shaking, eyes locked on the ceiling. There, just above the rafters, was a long, narrow hole. Blood dripped down from it. The villagers arrived with garlic and salt. They searched the area and found, deep in the brush, a pair of legs, lifeless, hollow. They covered them with salt. The creature never returned. But not all stories end in triumph. Some say the Manananggal has adapted, that she now moves to cities, that she can enter apartment buildings, disguise herself as neighbors, nurses, delivery workers. She still separates. She still flies. But she's learned how to hide. There are modern tales, people reporting strange figures passing by their windows high above the street, shadows that shouldn't be possible. Others wake up with cuts they don't remember getting, dreams of pressure on their chest, of wings that beat in silence. Some folklorists believe the Manananggal represents deep-seated fears in society, fear of betrayal, of hidden danger, of women who defy roles. She is sometimes seen as the embodiment of jealousy, loneliness, or rage. But to those who believe in her, she is not a symbol. She is real, and she flies at night. In Filipino horror films and literature, the manananggal is a favorite figure. She is monstrous and mysterious, and yet strangely alluring. Her dual nature, human by day, beast by night, speaks to something primal, something we fear not just in others, but in ourselves. Because what is more terrifying than the familiar made strange? The woman who smiles at you in the market, who watches you just a moment too long. The neighbor who never comes out during the day, but whose window is always open at night. The sound on your roof heavy and slow, like someone landing, someone waiting. So if you travel to the Philippines and you find yourself in a small village with an unfamiliar face nearby, and the night is unusually quiet, remember this: keep salt by your door, close your windows, and if you hear wings overhead, don't look up, because by then, she's already seen you. Chapter 9. The Churel, Spirit of Vengeance from South Asia. In the remote corners of South Asia, where villages huddle near ancient forests and the air grows thick with stillness after dusk, the stories change. They become darker, sharper, older, and none are older or more feared than the tale of the Churel, a spirit that does not haunt without reason, but with purpose. A woman wronged in life returned to seek justice from beyond the grave. But her justice is not mercy. It is vengeance. The Churel is said to be the ghost of a woman who died tragically, often during childbirth or due to betrayal, violence, or dishonor. In many tales, she died with unfinished anger in her heart, and that anger bound her spirit to the world of the living. She returns not to mourn, but to punish. According to legend, the Churel first appears as a beautiful woman. She may wear traditional clothing, often red, the color of both brides and blood. Her hair is long and unbound, cascading down her back. Her voice is soft, her face striking. But if you follow her, if you draw too close, you'll notice something wrong. Sometimes her face changes, becoming twisted, corpse-like, hollow-eyed. Other times her feet are backward. Her shadow doesn't match her body. She walks with a grace that doesn't belong to the living. And if she reveals her true form, eyes sunken, skin ashen, mouth stretched wide, you will not escape. The Churel preys on men, especially young men, especially those who are proud or cruel or guilty of harming women. She lures them into the forest, or into abandoned buildings, or sometimes just out of sight of the village. There, she drains them, not of blood, but of life itself, their strength, their youth, their spirit. Some are found days later, aged beyond recognition. Others vanish completely. In northern India and Pakistan, especially in regions like Rajasthan and the foothills of the Himalayas, stories of the Churel are common. She is a figure of caution. Mothers warn their sons not to wander at night. Villagers speak in low tones about the woman who once lived down the road, who died too soon, who was wronged, and whose presence can still be felt when the wind shifts. In one such story, A young soldier returned to his village after many years. He had left behind a pregnant fiancée and never returned for her. When she died in childbirth, her body was buried at the edge of the forest. The soldier, arrogant, celebrated, unaware, found himself drawn to a woman who stood at the village well each night. She was quiet, her eyes dark, her hair long. She never spoke, only stared. Within weeks, the soldier was found dead, his body shriveled, his face contorted in horror. The villagers said nothing. They knew who she was. The Churel legend carries powerful symbolism. She is often seen as the embodiment of female rage, rage left unanswered by systems that silenced or discarded women in life. In a way, the Churel takes back power. She punishes cruelty. She exposes those who act without remorse. She forces remembrance upon those who would forget. But she is not always seen as evil. Some rituals exist to appease her. In certain communities, ceremonies are held to properly bury women who died unjustly, in hopes of calming their spirits. Offerings of food and flowers are left at gravesites. Prayers are said to give the Churel peace, to guide her away from vengeance and toward rest. Still, some believe she never truly sleeps, that on nights when the wind dies and the moon is high, she walks again, beautiful at first, then terrible, searching, always searching. There's a strange duality in the Churel legend. She is both alluring and horrific, both victim and predator. She is the fear of the unknown woman and the guilt of past sins. She represents the hidden consequences of cruelty, the things that return when we think they've been buried. In some villages, people say that if you see a woman alone on the road at night, no matter how beautiful she may seem, do not stop. Do not speak. Do not follow, because the Churel is patient. She watches, and if you hear soft footsteps behind you, or the rustle of a sari on dry leaves, or a voice that calls your name even though no one should know it, keep walking. Do not turn around, because once you see her face,
it's already too late.
Chapter 10. The Bunyip. Terror beneath the water in Australian folklore. Australia is a land of ancient stillness and unspoken secrets. Its red deserts stretch for miles in eerie silence. Its towering eucalyptus forests whisper in winds that feel older than memory. And scattered across this vast landscape are quiet, shimmering pools, lakes and billabongs nestled in valleys or hidden in the bush. Some are fed by unseen rivers. Others never seem to change, whether in flood or drought. These bodies of water are often breathtaking, tranquil, beautiful. But beneath their surfaces, something waits. It is not a fish, not a croc, not something you can catch or explain. It is called the Bunyip, a creature of Aboriginal legend whispered about for thousands of years. It has many forms, many names, but one purpose: to strike fear into the hearts of those who come too close to the water's edge. The word Bunyip comes from the Wemba language, though nearly every Aboriginal group in Australia has a version of the creature. To some, it is known as Kianprati. To others, it is Tulung. Each group tells it differently, but the message is the same. There is something in the water, and it is not kind. A shape that changes. What makes the bunyip so frightening is not just its power or hunger. It is its mystery. The creature has no single settled form. Some stories describe it as a massive seal-like beast with dark fur, a head like a bulldog, and flippers that slap the muddy banks as it crawls out of the water. Others say it is more like a serpent, long and slick, with fins or feathers along its spine, capable of wrapping around a grown man and dragging him down. Some say it has one giant eye.
Others that it glows at night.
One particularly vivid description tells of a creature with a long neck, like that of a horse or emu, standing several feet above the water as it scans the shoreline. It hisses, it growls, and when it moves, it does so with an unnatural grace, sliding across the surface like a ghost. In colonial times, European settlers who heard these stories tried to categorize the bunyip. Some believed it to be an undiscovered species, a dinosaur that had somehow survived extinction. Others thought it might be a large seal or a misidentified cassowary. Bones discovered near rivers were sometimes labeled proof, and museums even displayed what they called bunyip skulls. But none of these efforts brought clarity. Because no matter how many drawings were made or how many theories proposed, the sightings never matched. Each was different, each terrifying in its own way, and none could be disproved, a warning in the water. To Aboriginal Australians, the bunyip was more than just a monster. It was a protector, a boundary, a warning. The waterholes it inhabited were often sacred, places tied to ancestral spirits or dreamtime stories, or to natural dangers not always visible. The bunyip, in this sense, served a purpose. It kept people safe. It reminded them that nature could not be owned or tamed, that some places should be left alone. Children were taught never to play near certain rivers, not to throw stones into silent ponds, not to walk too close to the edge after dark, because the bunyip could hear, and if you disturbed it, it would take you. Some stories speak of its voice, low, gurgling bellows that echo just under the surface. Others say it cries out like a woman in pain, a haunting, pitiful sound that lures travelers toward the water. A trap. Those who follow the sound are never seen again. There is a tale from Western Victoria where a group of travelers set up camp near a secluded lagoon. One night, they heard soft, rhythmic splashes, like someone wading slowly through water. They approached the shoreline, calling out, thinking a villager had come to greet them, but no one answered. In the morning, one of the men was gone. No tracks, no sign of struggle, just a single trail of bubbles leading into the center of the pond. The locals said, "You camped too close. That water belongs to something else." And they never returned. The European intrusion. When settlers arrived in Australia in the 18th and 19th centuries, they brought with them their own monsters, myths, and rational minds. Many dismissed the bunyip as mere superstition, stories told to scare children or keep people away from dangerous water. But others listened, and they too began to report sightings. In 1845, a newspaper in Sydney published a drawing of a strange creature said to be the bunyip, based on bones found near the Murrumbidgee River. The drawing depicted a creature with a long neck, webbed feet, and a bizarre, dog-like head. Experts speculated it could be a type of seal, or even a prehistoric relic. The discovery caused a sensation. Other bunyip bones were unearthed. Stories spread across the continent. Colonial officials debated whether to fund expeditions to search for the beast. One museum in Victoria displayed a bunyip skull for weeks, and visitors queued for hours to see it. But the excitement faded. No definitive creature was ever captured, no remains identified. And yet the stories continued, because the bunyip was never meant to be caught.
It was not a specimen. It was a presence.
And for many, that presence was very real. The bunyip in Dreamtime. In Aboriginal culture, the bunyip is tied closely to the Dreamtime, the spiritual and mythological understanding of the world's creation and the spirits that inhabit it. Some Dreamtime stories suggest that the bunyip was once a man or spirit who broke sacred laws and was cursed to become a creature of the deep. Others say the bunyip is a guardian, placed in the waters to protect sacred grounds or to punish those who defile nature. There's a legend told among the Wemba Wemba people of a young man who ignored his elders and swam in a forbidden waterhole. He mocked the warnings, claiming the bunyip was just a tale. He dived into the center of the pool, laughing. He never came back up. The next morning, all they found was his carved spear floating on the surface. No bubbles, no splash, just stillness.
The water never moved again.
Such stories aren't just about punishment. They're about balance, about respecting forces larger than yourself. The bunyip, in this way, is less a monster and more a spiritual enforcer, reminding people that certain boundaries must not be crossed. Modern sightings and theories. Even today, reports of bunyip sightings occasionally surface. A fisherman in New South Wales swears he saw something rise from a river bend at dusk. Something dark, larger than any croc, with a neck that seemed to sway like a snake's. He turned his boat and never returned to that stretch of river again. In 1993, campers near a billabong in the Northern Territory claimed they heard a deep, rumbling growl that lasted nearly a minute, low and wet and unnatural. No animals were spotted, no tracks were found, but one of them, a man who'd grown up hearing stories of the bunyip from his grandmother, left camp immediately. He didn't explain why. He didn't need to. The water itself had spoken. Skeptics say the legend can be explained by misidentified animals, seals, crocodiles, or large birds. That the cry of the curlew, a night bird with a haunting wail, could be mistaken for something unnatural. That ancient fossils unearthed from the ground were given too much meaning. But the legend is not so easily undone. Because the bunyip doesn't just exist in stories, it exists in the way people behave, the way they lower their voices near certain ponds, the way they keep their distance from certain banks, the way even modern campers, equipped with lights, maps, and logic, suddenly feel watched when they look out across still water. It is fear that has form, and belief that has survived. The bunyip today. In Australian popular culture, the bunyip has been softened, turned into a creature of children's books, cartoons, and parodies. There are statues of it in parks, festivals named after it. It has become, in some ways, a mascot. But this friendly version is only one face of the myth. In the countryside, in the deep bush, the older stories remain. The ones that speak not of curiosity, but of dread. The bunyip is not the star of its own legend. It is the silence after the splash. The reason a parent grips their child's hand a little tighter near a stream. The presence that makes you second guess stepping into unfamiliar water. Because even if you see nothing, no movement, no eyes, no ripples, you'll feel it. Watching, waiting. Not with rage, but with hunger. And if you hear a sound in the night, just outside your tent, near the edge of the billabong, don't go look. Don't call out. Just listen. Hold your breath. And whatever you do, don't step into the water. Thank you for joining me tonight. From weeping spirits and vengeful ghosts to shapeshifters and shadowed creatures, these legends remind us that every culture carries echoes of fear, stories whispered under breath, passed from generation to generation, never fully fading.
Whether you believe in them or not, one thing is certain. Darkness has a long memory.
Sleep well, and don't look under the bed.